Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I have a new video today about these two plants here, which are both Phragmipedium hybrids I've been given by someone at the Orchid Society. They've had them for a while. They never managed to rebloom these plants, so they gave them to me, and I want to use these as a bit of an experimental subject because I have some Phragmipedium plants, as you may or may not know, and I want to see if I can maybe transition them to some other media, because I grow mine in a mix that's heavy on bark and also contains a little bit of sphagnum moss. Most Phragmipediums I have, I've been told to keep them basically wet at all time, and if you use bark and moss media, that can degrade very quickly under these conditions, and then you have to maybe repot once a year or even more often than that, and I kind of don't want to do that. So I was thinking maybe I can come up with some media combination that the Phragmipedium orchids I have might still thrive in, but that also caters to my laziness. And so instead of sphagnum moss, I really want to try out this medium right here. It's called Synthic. I got it, I think, almost a year ago at this point, and I never got around to trying it out. And so it's basically these strands of very soft, feels like microfiber. It's a synthetic, probably like polymer plastic-esque kind of thing. It's very soft and it's supposed to retain a lot of moisture, as would sphagnum moss. And so yeah, this is kind of the one component I want to play with. And then the other component I want to add instead of the bark is, I don't know, some kind of leca. So these are little spheres of inflated terracotta, I guess. So yeah, this is kind of the first mix I want to try out. And then as the second mix, I want to try out just plain seramis, which I've used for just normal houseplants for a while, and it works really well for them. But now I want to see if I can use maybe seramis alone, also for Phragmipediums. And so yeah, the idea is I'm gonna pot these two plants, then I'll just take you along, we'll have a look at them for a while, and then we can evaluate what came out in the end, and then see if we want to adopt this media, whichever one is the best, for the plants that are already in the collection. So yeah, if that sounds interesting, then stay around. Okay, first up I want to hydrate the Synthic and also the leca pebbles, and so then I can use the time spent on unpotting the plants for them to absorb water. So I have some beakers here that I'm just going to drop in a little bit of the Synthic for now, and I just have some water, and I'll fill this up. If you've ever worked with sphagnum moss, normally when it's dry it's almost a little water repellent. I've read Synthic is supposed to do the same thing, but this doesn't look like it. I put it into water and it basically immediately got super wet. So that might actually be beneficial, because I feel like some plants I put moss on top, and then when it dries out you spray the moss and it almost feels like, yeah, you have to work very hard to even get it to rehydrate again. So you know. Okay, and this is what the leca looks like. These are very fine little pebbles. I expected these to be larger actually. Let's see. Probably Nina from Ninja Orchids is literally throwing up right now when she looks at this. She's very strict with her leca, like she washes it, sterilizes it and everything. I'm probably not going to do that. I'm just gonna do maybe like one wash and use it as is. Oops. But yeah, so this is kind of the idea. Now we can have these two things incubate and absorb the water, and we can continue with the plants. I'm just going to take them out of the pot they're in already and then just put them right back. So let's see what we have here. Okay, there is already some grit in this one. The media smells a little off though, as expected. I feel like this is kind of the smell I get from my Phragmipediums as well. So okay, so she has her Phragmipedium in, it's a layer of sphagnum moss on the bottom, then a layer of just like little stone grit thingies, and then it's bark, and on top again it's moss, and this almost looks like living moss, but it's not really alive anymore. So yeah, it's basically a 3-layer thing. Moss on top and on the bottom, and then sandwiched in between it's grit, little stones, and bark. So that's interesting, I think. Okay, so this is what we have right now. I guess if I took myself a little more seriously, I would probably rinse this off. I should probably rinse this off. Okay, but before I rinse it off, I'll just take care of the other one as well. So then I can be a little more efficient. This one has a different setup, mainly bark. I feel like this is a much drier mix, and it seems like this plant might have actually enjoyed a little more humidity. Did I ever tell you what these plants are? So this smaller one is called Phragmipedium Carol Cancer. Dang, what a name. And the other one is Phragmipedium Yelva Mure? Not 100% sure. But yeah, these are the plants we're working with today, and I feel like this one, it's a bit dry. I think that's already the reason maybe why this plant wasn't super happy. It's just doesn't have great roots, and maybe the media really was just a little too dry for us. Oof. The more I pull, the less roots remain. So maybe this is not going to be a super fair comparison, but there are some new growths coming on this plant, and I feel like there are also some new root nubbins coming. So if we love, I want to put this one into the seramis. So if we love seramis, then, you know, I think that could be a really nice opportunity for growth and development. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, a quick clean up later. I think we're ready to move on here. Since these pebbles are very small, they're gonna fall through the water drainage holes on this pot. So the idea is to put a little bit of the synthetic down first. Very similar actually in this plant's previous setup, right, where it had moss on the bottom. Okay, so let's see, we have this in, and then I would just put a little bit of the leca pebbles around. A little bit more synthetic. And I'm kind of putting it around the roots almost. Oh, I should have actually prepared a little more of this right now. I'm running very low already. Okay, I'm gonna have to put a little bit of dry leca on top. Because I don't want the roots to sit out in the air. Okay, and then this is what the plant looks like now. Let's hope it's going to thrive. And then this one here, apparently seramis is inherently more water retentive than leca, maybe I should also prehydrate actually the seramis. That's also a lot of dust that is coming off. Okay, this is just what the plant is gonna have to deal with. As for the previous one, I feel like the pieces of medium are too small, so they'll fall through. I'm just gonna put a little bit of synthetic on the bottom here as well, just to kind of fill up the water drainage holes a little bit. Let's put a little bit of the seramis in, and then the plant on top. Okay, so here we go. Both plants are potted up, and yeah, then let's just have a look at them over the next time and see how they're developing, and I'll keep you updated, hopefully anyways. Okay, 7 weeks passed, and I think we're ready to have a quick look at the Phragmipediums and how they've been doing in their new setup. So here they are. We have the Phragmipedium Yelva Mir, and this is the one in a mixture of synthetic and leca beads. And I think right away what we can tell, the plant is still alive. I think it's doing pretty well. There is this new growth that's maturing, and there is another new growth coming on this side. However, my kind of point of criticism right now is the quite substantial amount of salt buildup on the top already. So this is pretty fast. Doesn't seem to affect the plant yet. Maybe it will in the future. We'll have to see. But what I really like to observe in this clear pot, and I think going forward, whenever I'll do a media experiment, I should really use a clear pot, because then you can really observe any roots and so on. And this plant, for example, you can clearly see there is a growing root tip in here. I think this media seems to be quite the success, and it's been really easy to manage the hydration levels for these. Typically I have my plants in organic media, so I use bark and maybe a little bit of sphagnum moss, and then watering them is a bit of a chore because bark doesn't really retain the water that well, and moss breaks down really quickly, and I've been advised to keep my Phragmipediums always in a little bit of water. However, if you have a bark sphagnum moss mix, then it breaks down, it gets smelly, right? All the issues we've been mentioning. And this seems to be a viable option. However, I feel like I prefer actually the seramis, because, I mean, yes, the plant is doing pretty well. This is the Phragmipedium cancer, or whatever you pronounce it. It has some new growths coming. But for me, the big thing is this doesn't have nearly as much salt buildup as this plant, which makes me wonder if the leca already contains maybe a certain amount of salt. So I think I'm going to move all of the Phragmipediums I have into the seramis setup. And that's what we're going to do today. But before we do that, alongside my Phragmipediums, I have this plant. This is Maxillaria tenuifolia, the orchid that smells like coconut, pineapple, pina colada when it blooms. And I've managed to bloom this before once, but I feel like lately this plant has been mainly working on vegetative growth. This grew so much, especially if you compare it to what it looked like when I first got it. Yeah, as I mentioned, this has flowered for me before. I love the fragrance, but I don't know, ever since it hasn't bloomed at all. And so now my question is, do you have any tips on what to do? I feel like this plant likes a lot of light, and I've been trying to give it just that, but maybe there are other things to keep in mind. As I mentioned, I keep this alongside the Phragmipediums. That means there's always, as you can see here, there's always a little bit of water in the bottom. I feel like this plant is extremely thirsty. Doesn't like to dry out at all. I'm just peeling back some of the sheaths here to see if I see any flower buds. Maybe. Hard to tell. But I think kind of early spring has been the flowering season for this one. So let's see. If you have any tips, leave them in the comments down below. I wonder if I should move this plant into seramis as well, but that's, I think, a task for another day. Okay, let's get started maybe with the one that I consider most challenging right now. This is a Phragmipedium schlimii that I've been gifted by a friend from the Orchid Society. This has flowered this year. I cannot take any credit for the blooming of this plant or whatever it's doing right now. This has been given to me in the most pristine state ever, and this was super generous as well. These Phragmipedium plants can get really expensive, especially once they're flowering size. And as you can see, the roots in this pot are just insane and wild and everything you'd want. There are several new growths coming. We have lots of new growing tips, but I feel like here on the bottom, the quality of roots is not that amazing anymore. The media still smells good actually, but I still feel like I want to get this plant into a new setup, just to kind of have it behave more similarly to the other plants with the same media. As you can see, this plant has some spots on the leaves. These were scale, actually. If you've been around this channel for a while, you know scale, this Boy's Duval scale, is the bane of my existence, and I was hoping that, like Phragmipedium, Phragmipedium would be resistant to scale. I've never seen scale on any of my Phragmipediums. Probably jinxing that right now, but I think based on, like, if I remember correctly, they don't infect or attack or whatever every orchid genus, and I was hoping that since Phragmipedium were not affected, maybe Phragmipedium would be safe as well, but no. Anyway, so yeah, I'm just kind of pulling off any dry dead leaves and so on. Yeah, then I'll have to figure out what to do with all the media in here. I might have to go to the sink and rinse off the rest. Yeah, if not, I'll just plonk it in as it is, in the hope that a little bit of remaining bark won't completely ruin the new setup. But yeah, this plant I think is in a really nice state. I'm hoping for flowers again this year. It's so nice. Fortunately, this is not one of the fragrant individuals. I think Phragmipedium schlimii is one of the few Phragmipediums that can have a fragrance. This particular one does not. But you know, there is another Phragmipedium schlimii, a young plant. Maybe that one is fragrant, and if not, then you know what, you can't have everything. This is, I guess, also a big lesson to learn as you grow up, that you can't have everything, and you have to make work with what you do have. Got so much wisdom here. Yeah, I don't remember if I mentioned this. The previous the initial trial with the new media, that was 7 weeks ago, and it felt appropriate to have a look now since there were some new developments on these other plants, developments that I consider very positive, so yeah. Anyways, you can see we have new roots, new growths. This is an extremely vigorous plant, so my hopes are high that it's going to do well once it's moved into the new media. I'm just going to maybe cut off all of these roots that are not doing so well anymore. and I hope I won't set back this plant too much by repotting now. But with new roots coming, with new growths coming, with also all of these actively growing root tips, I think we should be safe. So far, I don't want to jinx it, but so far I also find Phragmipedium a little easier to grow actually than Phragmipedium, because Phragmipedium, all of the ones I have, I've been told, just keep them wet. Just always have some water in like the dish under the pot or whatever, and you'll be fine. So, and I feel like Phragmipedium, they like to dry out a little bit, right? They're a little more work, I feel like. But let's see how I'll do long term with Phragmipedium. This one feels appropriate actually. I think I'm just gonna leave it as is. This was repotted last time. It says here repotted last July. Not sure if I believe that, I'm sorry. The seramis is going to fall through, so I'll just put a thin layer of synthetic there to just cover the holes, to make sure nothing's falling out. And over there I have some seramis that's been soaking in water, just so I don't put the plants into a completely dry media that's also very porous. I feel like dry seramis is extremely thirsty, so I feel like that might actually harm the roots, so I wanted to kind of pre-hydrate it. Okay, this is the large Phragmipedium schlimii done. Let's move on to the small one, which is this one here. Very tiny still. And the root system is not nearly as impressive as the other one, obviously. But you can see there's a new root here. Okay. This was in a bark and just kind of like agrofoam or whatever it's called mix. I'll keep the little bark pieces on the roots, like the ones that they attach to. I don't want to hurt the roots by trying to peel off every little piece of bark. And I feel like also the holes here are small enough to not be an issue with the seramis. Okay, let's peel maybe away here. It's a bit unclear where the new growth might come. I guess this is an eye that's swelling. Don't know if you can see this. So I think this might be where the new growth starts. Yeah, let's just assume that for now. I'll just put it kind of more or less in the middle. Okay, small Phragmipedium schlimii. Wait, there's a little bit of a root that I want to cover. Now, we're done. And this one is a Phragmipedium kovachii. I feel like this is a bit of a more finicky one. This completely consumed the original bulb that came while growing the new bulb. So I'm not quite sure what this plant wants. Roots look okay, I would say. Not amazing by any means. Yeah, Phragmipedium kovachii is not sold very often. It tends to be extremely expensive. Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure really what this plant wants from me. Why it kind of absorbed the entire back bulb or back fan or whatever you want to call it while maturing the new growth. But there are some new root nubbins coming. As you can see here, there are some other roots that maybe stalled development. So that's hopeful, right? Some dead roots. It has like this weird kind of central root moment where the other ones are branching off from, removing anything that feels squishy. You don't like squishy, but anything that seems still solid, I'm just gonna leave it on. Squishy, squishy, squishy. Am I keeping this too wet, maybe? Leave a comment, please, if you have any experience growing Phragmipedium kovachii. Yeah, let me know. Maybe I'm keeping this one too wet. This pot seems way too big, actually. It's not much smaller, but just a little bit. I feel like that's gonna help the root development. Then let's fill up around the plant. I feel like this one could have gone a little deeper into the pot. Just want to bury this new root that's emerging so it doesn't dry out. Then let's see. I feel like it's not the prettiest plant, but there's still a chance for this one to survive. So yeah. Okay, next up, this one. If you've been around the channel for a while, you might know this one. This is Phragmipedium besseae. It says Peru on it. I showed this one last year when it was in bloom, actually, and it's the Phragmipedium besseae flavum variety, right? The normal Phragmipedium besseae is super bright orange. This one is yellow. It's a rare color form, and as far as I know, all of the yellow Phragmipedium besseae plants are derived from one single yellow individual that was discovered by accident. This one also kind of ate up its central fan, but then it made now 2 nice growths. I feel like the roots look really good. So this makes me very happy. I hope maybe that this one is going to bloom again this year. I would honestly just put it back into the same pot. Should I put it into a larger one? No, I think the same pot is good for now. And I'll just fill it up with seramis and hope it's not gonna hate me. As you can see, they're all pretty wet. This one still smells fresh. I repotted this one into fresh bark some point during the summer last year, so 2024. I didn't show that. It's still pretty fresh and pretty good, but I think putting it into seramis is gonna make things a little easier for me, because as you might know, I like to be a little, you know, not too involved with my children. I encourage independence. Okay, there you go. Phragmipedium besseae flavum. Maybe I should add this to the tag. I also have another Phragmipedium besseae. This one is Miriam by self, and this one's not doing super well. Sad. Not sure what's happening. Maybe it dried out at some point. This is actually very likely under my care. Oh wow, we don't have any root on this one. This one I think is from Asendorfer Orchideen. I've had kind of mixed experiences with them. I placed an order from them a while ago and I wasn't super thrilled because the plants are also a little more expensive. But then I've heard from people I know, they order there, they love it. New plants, amazing. So yeah, I guess, yeah, you know. Wow, yeah, so there is basically nothing root-wise on this plant. So for sure it's not gonna go back into this pot. But I feel like here maybe there is a new root starting here. So let's make sure that root is not gonna be started in vain. So I would put this plant into a tiny pot like this and really make sure that this new root point is covered by media. So there you go. Phragmipedium besseae. This is supposed to be the tipo type color, so kind of bright reddish orange, which I actually prefer over the yellow. I know, rare color form, but I prefer actually the normal standard color. I guess I'm like the person who first discovered that their Phragmipedium wasn't the normal type color. Anyways, next up, this is Phragmipedium caudatum, which has really nice roots, I think, and a new growth coming here on the side. Okay, this one is in a mix of bark and perlite, a lot of perlite actually. So I feel like perlite and seramis are not too dissimilar, so this transition should be rather smooth. I think I'm just gonna put it into this same pot here and move it into something larger once this new growth is more established and kind of we know what's going on. Okay, there you go, Phragmipedium caudatum. This was actually labeled as one that's a bit more difficult to grow. Not sure what exactly establishes that. But Schwerter-Orchideen, they said, needs an experienced grower. These are more difficult plants. So let's see. Okay, next up, this is Phragmipedium popowii, or also known as Varsovicianum. It has several new growths actually, so that's very nice. And I think the roots on this one are also, they're not splendid or spectacular, but they're good enough. This one was in a bark and moss mix, and it's pretty attached to these bark pieces, so I don't want to remove them. I feel like that always leads to a little bit of trauma on them. This one also consumed its central bulb it came with to, I guess, fuel the production of new growths. But I guess now these smaller ones that are there might, hopefully at least, they won't jeopardize this fan that's already there. I think this is one of the ones with the curly sepals. Oh, there's even something new happening in between here. Can you see? This part here. Very interesting. So this seems to be quite a vigorous plant then. Yeah, I don't want to remove too much more of the bark. It's very tempting to put this actually into a smaller pot. This came in. Nah, this is not going to fit. It's just going to go back into its old and new pot. But it looks like I can maybe keep it in a little more deeply buried. There you go, Phragmipedium. It says here caudatum popowii, but here it says popowii varsovicianum. I already have a caudatum here. Maybe in the comments below you can enlighten me. Do I have the same species twice? Let me know, please. And then last but not least, this is Phragmipedium ainsworthii. I got this one at a plant exhibition actually. That's because I'm such a good YouTuber, I did not document that at all. So that was really smart of me. But yeah, this one had barely any roots, but it looks like it's been doing pretty well then under my care so far. I'm not sure what this even looks like from most of these Phragmipediums. I'm like, no idea what they're going to look like. I know kovachii is stunning flower-wise. I've seen the besseae, of course. I think I'm going to cut off these ones. These are the roots I think it came with that were dead already a year ago. When did I go? In April or something. So yeah, this can go. This one seems at least alive until there. This one, well, it has a dead piece or something that feels dead in between, but Anyway, so yeah, I know what besseae looks like, I know what kovachii looks like. I've seen obviously schlimii bloom. The other ones I'm not so sure about. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really grow them for flowers anyways. I grow them for the fun and the challenge and the eccentricity of it all. Hence also the bulbophyllums. Check out the previous video where I show some bulbophyllums. Like those are very alien and beautifully fragrant. At least some of them. There you go. Phragmipedium ainsworthii. I feel like maybe now they could all fit into one tray. Maybe. Well, no, I guess they won't because of the maxillaria tenuifolia. Let's see, I guess first of all I should clean up this mess. And there you have it. This is what the Phragmipediums look like in their new media setup, but their old home. If anything comes up, I'll definitely keep you updated. Right now, I'll just keep watering them as normal, and I'll have an eye out for any unexpected developments. I'm full of hope that this transition into new media is gonna go pretty smoothly. Yeah, let me know in the comments what you think, if you have any remarks. And here we are, another 2 months after the report. Most of the Phragmipedium plants are doing pretty well in their new setup. It looks like they really don't care whether they're in bark or in an inorganic setup like seramis. The only thing I can notice right now is that there is a little bit of a salt buildup on top of them. I will have to keep an eye on that. Right now it does not seem to affect them, but I might just exchange the top layers that has a lot of crystallized salt and remove, or rather replace them. It looks like many of them are actually producing new growths. Their colors are nice. But it also looks like the Phragmipedium besseae flavum is not going to bloom this year. Last year it was in full bloom around this time, but yeah, I guess this year maybe it's still coming, or maybe we're just skipping this year. But yeah, so there you go. This is a video that's taken quite a while now actually to make. But I really wanted to include the updates in the same video because it's kind of stupid to film the whole thing and then like months later come back and be like, hey, especially knowing myself, I probably wouldn't film the update if it's not part of the same video. So there you go. Let me know what you think about this style of video. I noticed actually that the video about the bulbophyllums really didn't do that well. I know there is a certain sampling bias by asking the viewers of this video now to give me feedback on another one. But still, I could really tell that bulbophyllum is not really a genus that the viewers of this channel seem to be interested in. But maybe I'm mistaken, let me know. Anyways, thanks a lot for watching, thanks a lot for commenting, subscribing, liking and all of that. And I'll see you in another video eventually. I'm not gonna say soon anymore. Eventually. Bye!